Okay, so this morning I'm going to be doing a review on my favourite running shoes to date. These are the Vibram KSO Evos. They are my favourite running shoes just for general running, training, and more so the experience of the run. How it feels when running in these shoes and the actual experience I get. So not necessarily the performance, so to speak, but more so the feel, like I said. So I've broken it down into 6 different categories or criteria, which I'm going to be reviewing these shoes on. And hopefully this will just give you a bit more clarity if you're thinking about trying out the Vibrams for running and whether this is going to suit you. So the first criteria is weight of the shoe. Now, these shoes, being a barefoot running shoe, are extremely light. So they are around 5 ounces in weight, which is roughly 140 grams. So extremely light. You barely even notice the weight on your foot. So they're a brilliant, efficient running shoe in terms of running economy. They do not weigh down your feet, so your hip muscles do not get as fatigued. So the weight on these is an extremely valuable factor to consider when picking a running shoe. And this goes back to how I was saying I really enjoy the feel of these shoes more than anything. So comparatively to any other shoe, they are one of the lightest shoes that you can purchase, and it gives you that barefoot experience while also giving you the protection of the feet. So that is one reason why I really love this shoe, really recommend it. Now the next category I've chosen is the terrain. So the variety of terrain that you can comfortably run on with this shoe. Now the tread on this shoe is fairly basic. They use the famous Vibram sole, obviously being a Vibram shoe. They are very grippy. They're not as grippy as the trail running variety that they have of the shoe. But I've found that I can run on both concrete, grass, and different trails very comfortably with this shoe. So I would say this is an all-terrain shoe. I've spent up to at least 700, possibly even 1,000 kilometers in these shoes, and they are still running absolutely fine. There's a little bit of wear and tear on the forefoot where I land. One of the shoes has a little bit of a rip. Just on the instep of the shoe here, but that is really the only damage that these shoes have taken, and I've given them absolute hell. I've done speed sessions in them, I've done hill sessions in them, I've taken them on the concrete, in the rain, through the grass, over rubble, over stones, everything. So they are a multi-purpose all-terrain shoe. The one downside of these shoes that people may experience is the fact that they are a very barefoot or minimalist shoe, so you can feel the ground beneath you. Now, there is a downside, but there's also an upside to this. So the downside, if the feet are not conditioned and you stand on, say, a stone, for example, you may feel that in the foot. It may cause a little bit of discomfort or pain. But on the flip side of this is one of the massive benefits of running minimalist and running barefoot, is that it forces you to be efficient because you can feel the terrain. So the 200,000 sensory receptors that we have in the soles of our feet, these are ignited, these are switched on, and they are more dialed in to the terrain when running on them. So it allows for more feedback and more understanding of how our body is moving through space across the terrain. So that is one of the massive benefits of running in Vibrams or other minimalist shoes, is that your adaptability is a lot more efficient as you can feel the terrain beneath you. And that takes me to the next category which I've chosen, which is ground feedback. Because of the super thin sole, like I was just saying in the previous category, you can feel almost everything under your foot. So Your ankle receptors, your foot receptors, they receive information almost immediately, as opposed to a shoe that has thicker cushioning where these receptors do not receive information correctly, so the body takes longer to adapt to an alteration in terrain. So the ground feedback with the Vibrams is amazing. It is extremely beneficial if you're running trails where you have undulating terrain and where you also have dips and holes in the terrain, or there may be tree stumps or roots in the tree, or roots in the ground rather. You may be running over stones or steps. All of the variety of surfaces and terrain that you may be running over, due to this ground feedback, you have amazing response time because you can feel everything underneath the feet. So highly recommended in terms of feedback. It switches on your senses, ignites the entire experience of the run, and in turn makes it a safer run because you can respond to the variety of terrain immediately, just like that. Now the next criteria is energy return. So how much energy return do you get from this shoe? Now this was a tough one to contemplate because most of my running is performed barefoot or minimalist. So my body, my tendons in my feet, my ankles, my calves, they are all adapted to running in this manner. So I feel very efficient when running in a shoe like this because I've spent much time building up the natural resilience in my feet and ankles. Now with that being said, there is not as much extra pop in the sole of the shoe. It does not give you extra energy rebound that you do not already have naturally, but the protection from the sole feels as though it does give some form of energy return compared to running purely barefoot. So I've done lots of training barefoot on concrete, trails, grass, everything. I've done training in the Vibram on all terrains, and then I've also done training with shoes that have a bit extra cushioning and a bit of extra energy return technology added into the sole. And although the feel of the run is different, I've still achieved most of my fastest times in these shoes. So they are not just a shoe to become more in tune with your body or improve your natural running stride. I wholeheartedly believe they are still a fast running shoe, and a lot of this comes down to their light weight. So because they are lighter in weight, they are less fatiguing on the hip muscles as they are not dragging down the hips. So although they do not have extra technology added into them to provide energy return, the reduction in weight of the shoe in itself as a byproduct produces extra energy return. So I would say these are on par in terms of energy return to a shoe such as the Ultra Escalantes, for example. And one other thing I've noticed with the Vibram, whether running at a slow pace or a fast pace, you get a good snap out of the shoe. Meaning, with some other shoes where they have extra cushioning, I've found that I have to be running at a fast pace to get the benefits of the energy return. Whereas with the Vibrams, I can cruise at a nice, slow aerobic pace and still feel light on my feet and efficient. And I can really pick up the pace in the Vibrams, do some more anaerobic speed work, and still move really fast. And I put this down to the light weight of the shoe. So in terms of energy return, there certainly could be more technology added to Vibrams. I would love to see a kind of hybrid shoe where the Vibram adds just a really thin layer of added sole technology to give it a bit of energy return, but I still highly rate it as long as your body is adapted and efficient with minimalist or barefoot running. Now the next category I've chosen is agility. I think agility is highly underrated when it comes to running. And this does tie into the terrain and the weight of the shoe, which I've discussed earlier in this video. Now, agility is super important because this comes down to efficiency, this comes down to reduction in risk of injury, and just overall strength adaptations and safer long-term results when it comes to running. So if you can be a better athlete, if you can be more agile on your feet, you are going to be a better runner. So if you have a shoe that supports your agility and allows you to express your agility, then you're in a safer environment for progressing in terms of long term. So the thing I've found with Vibrams that make them, in my opinion, better than any other shoe in this category is they allow you to be agile. They allow you to be nimble on your feet and adapt to any given terrain. Your sensory receptors are switched on, you can feel the ground beneath you, but you still have the protection and the confidence because the sole is still the first point of contact on the ground, so you know you're not going to cut your foot on a tree root or a stone or whatever it may be. So you have that confidence to really give it your all, but still maintain your agility. The thicker the cushioning in a shoe, the less relationship we have between the ground beneath us, the less agility that we have, or at least in my experience anyway. I have found that if I cannot feel the ground beneath me, my ankles and my foot receptors cannot react accordingly, and I land a lot heavier on my with each step, and this is going to lead to micro damage in the long term. If we are not landing softly with our foundation, our foot, this is where most of the tendons and the elastic energy is stored in our body. If we lose that connection to that foundation, we lose so much agility, and this creates a chain effect up the body, so the entire body is less well positioned when making these maneuvers and adapting to the terrain. Because we must remember that running is a full body movement, it's a full body experience. It's not just a group of individual muscle groups working to move us through space. This is our relationship with our environment around us, including our sensory and spatial awareness, knowing how we are holding our body in space. So if we are more agile and adaptive, we're going to be safer runners, more efficient runners. So this is not about performance and speed in a race. This is about safe, agile, efficient footsteps, making our body more resilient and strong and adaptive in any environment. So that is the biggest thing that I love about the Vibrams, is that it allows you to be agile and nimble on your feet, and you have to rely on your own body's strength. There is no extra added technology that is going to mask some of your weaknesses. When our weaknesses are masked, other areas are going to suffer down the long term. So we can put all the technology we want into a shoe, but if it's masking some of our inefficiencies, it is inevitable that they will show up eventually in the form of knee pain, hip pain, lower back pain, neck pain, you name it. If the body is not agile and nimble, you are going to land heavier. And they have done studies on this, where the thicker the sole, the more ground force impact shoots through the body and essentially is going to cause the body damage. So agility is, in my opinion, one of the most underrated aspects to consider when thinking of our longevity and thinking how can we become a safer, better runner. And last category is comfort. Now, this shoe is shaped like my foot, so it is the most comfortable shoe in my opinion. I do see the appeal of having more cushion and that soft feeling beneath your foot in other regular everyday shoes or running shoes. I understand the appeal of that. But once I wore the Vibrams more so, and the anatomy of my foot started to open up again, because we must realise that most shoes are too narrow for our feet and restrict, inhibit, and even reshape the anatomy of our foot. So although our bodies will adapt to this, and our feet will adapt to this more narrow shape of our foot over time as we grow up and wear these shoes that are not shaped like feet, although we will adapt to some degree, through restoring my foot health over the years, doing corrective exercises, performing myofascial release, and becoming familiar with the shape of the natural human foot, I can't really say there's any other shoe that's more comfortable than a Vibram. You basically just have a thin layer surrounding your foot, but it is still free to move and express itself the way a foot should. So 10 out of 10 for comfort. Absolutely love the Vibram, and that is my review on the Vibram KSO Evos. My favourite all-around running shoe for long-term health, safety, and efficient running. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.